I still don't get why you didn't cast me as Twilight.
For the, what is it, 50th time now? Your Twilight sounds like you with a friggin' sinus infection. Besides, you didn't even send in a demo anyway.
I thought it was a given that when you do an audio adaptation of the fiction I praised for years now as the best of its kind, that I would get the main role.
Oh, Anne, sweetie, listen. Some ponies voice amazing fanfics. Others, well, you, review them. And some like me can do both. Now, let's focus on what we're good at, shall we?
Fine. Hello there, this is TheAnYPony.
Wow, a long time since I've heard that.
Shush you. Welcome to the long overdue spoiler-free review of what I have been referring to as best fanfiction for ages now. Hard Reset. And because I hooked her up on the fic and now I'm kind of responsible for her obsession, today once again with me, the one with the overview, coming from high above, the great and towering, our lighthouse at the end of the uprise.
Keyframe. My name is Keyframe. Point A, point B, hi. Let's get on with it, shall we?
Yeah, I just was building up to it.
Okay, I get it. I am tall. Sweet cadenza. Are we even going to get to this story?
As you wish, my lady. Hard Reset is the first part of the epic time loop trilogy by the sadly over a year now inactive writer Eaton. I have checked out quite a few pieces of his library and would recommend him in general, but before all, his most famous work Key and I want to introduce to you today.
Given the fact that it is the first story in this trilogy, it is able to stand alone as its own property. And given that it doesn't even break 40k words, it's the perfect size for any type of reader. Well, almost any type of reader. Among the adventure tag, it is also tagged as dark, and given some of the subject matter it dives into, yeah, it does deserve that tag.
However, while the action does get brutal at times, it never gets graphical or overtly gory, and even with a little bit of, let's call it, romantic content, Hard Reset never goes beyond its well-picked teen rating. So, what is Hard Reset actually about?
Ponies. What else? Well, ponies and changelings. The story follows Twilight in first-person mode, having to try and defeat the newest invasion by the changeling army not too long after Candlelight Wedding. However, it's not that simple, or else this story would be really short and boring. No, she fails. Fatally. But, due to a spell, she's able to go back to the point in time right before the attack. Again, and again, and again. It's not called Hard Reset for nothing.
While a few people expressed that they are not a big fan of Twilight's presentation in the story, I personally love her ongoing snarky and sarcastic commentary as a narrator. Fun fact, initially Eaton never intended the story to be as funny as it turned out. But besides the dark and at times outright horrible events happening in the story, Twilight and her antics constantly made me laugh.
The fact that it is Twilight as the narrator and not some type of third-person perspective, it gives us a great look into the severity of these events onto Twilight's psyche. Honestly, that was the aspect that hooked me into the trilogy, how it is able to progress realistically the amount of mental and emotional damage a situation like this could do to a person, and what it takes to cope with it. It's an aspect that many stories, not just time travel stories, do not delve into, mostly because of the minefield the topic is, along with being, well, hard to stomach. It was a risk this story took, and I'm so glad it did.
Now, since you brought up the time travel, while there are numerous interesting stories about the idea of traveling through time and how timelines work, it easily gets screwed up and produces a plot hole-riddled mess. And most of the time it is just used as a silly gimmick for a story that doesn't take itself too seriously. Hard Reset is actually an example of a time travel story done very well. Ekin makes the concept simple enough and keeps it cohesive throughout the book. If it fits your personal idea of time travel is another question, but if you are into time travel at all, I would say it is a must read.
I myself am not a huge stickler on the mechanics of time travel in media, as I tend to focus on its impact in the story in a literary sense. It is very easy to just turn the entire chapter into a how to time guide, or not discuss anything at all and leave the audience in the abyss of ambiguity. Add magic into the situation and you could pretty much hear the ticking time bomb of mediocrity and fallacy ready to blow. Hard Reset, though, is able to get its mechanics out there in a quick, easy to digest way. And they sprinkle how the spell works and affects Twilight throughout the book, letting readers ease into how the story's magic functions.
To be fair, it gets a bit more complicated in the sequence. No, this does not qualify as a spoiler. It's called the Time Loop Trilogy, so obviously there are more than one book. So yeah, while it goes beyond the very simple single time loop and enters the realm of more fantastic ideas for adventures in time and space, the Arcano-Techno bubble stays reasonable and the focus remains on the characters and the adventure.
Aw, but I thought you loved babbling. I mean, it is 90% of your everyday speech.
Coming from the one who never gets tired of listening to my voice. Anyways, further down the trilogy, Ekin does stuff like picking up a certain development from the show, integrating it into his own book, and, do I dare to say it, vastly improves upon it. No more details here due to spoiler reasons, but I am pretty sure you get what I am referring to once you finish the trilogy. Please remember to mark speculations and discussions about this in the comments as spoilers as well.
And no, we don't mean going all Rainbow Factory and taking a somewhat innocent concept from the show and twisting it into a dark and mature story that DHX could never do. No, Ekin is able to take the events from the show and write them in a way that, for the most part, could be feasibly seen as a proper alternative to what the show did. But since I'm on Grey is the New Black's channel, I can't go any further than that.
First, Grey is practical since it never clashes with any visitor's color scheme. And second, at least I have a channel to live in and don't have to live in an empty gallery. Or Dee's bedroom.
Okay, moving on. I know we already talked about Twilight's character in this story, and of course, she is the main character. However, the book does offer a lot more than Twilight's snarkle. The other characters in this fiction are so well done. Spike is such a supportive, kind character, and how Ekin writes him and Twilight's almost maternal bond is such a sweet little add-on to the story, which is well needed given all the cynical deadpanning Twilight spouts out throughout the tale. You can really see how much Twilight respects him and how she talks and thinks about him compared to every pony else in the world. The royalty, both the princesses and our changeling queen, also have interesting characterizations. The princesses, even more so in the sequels, have this immortal, regal air to them that we simply don't see in the show. They feel like they can actually run a nation as vast as Equestria. And Chrysalis? Ooh boy. If you like a brutal, dark, and cunning Chrissy, you'll like Eakin's version of her.
As I mentioned before, what is not to love about this story? So, after you've checked out Hard Reset and feel like more, A Stitch in Time and You Can Fight Fate bring you even more snark, wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff, and well, weather wanes. You will get it.
Never forget the weather vanes.
Indeed. And it doesn't even stop here. Ekin also wrote a second take on the events surrounding the trilogy from the point of view of a cloud kicker who has obviously been highly inspired by Chenga Cordo's Life and Time of a Winning Pony, but quickly develops into her own interpretation of named character. Sad truth though, while already being Ekin's longest fiction by far, Changing Lives is incomplete and hasn't been updated since Ekin's Pony Burnout in spring 2015. However, even though it currently ends on a very unsatisfying point, it is a very fascinating look into changelings and how they work and operate. So yeah, even in its unfinished state, I still highly recommend it.
One other thing to mention about Hard Reset is the fact that it has an alternate ending. It is very, very dark. I mean, not like the story was a Pinkie Pie party to begin with, but damn. And without spoiling too much, I'm not exactly a fan of this ending. With all the focus and tact and wonderful developments to Twilight's struggles throughout the story, this ending felt a bit like a cop-out. But it is only a supplement, and you don't have to read it to get the full experience of the tale. If you do read this ending and enjoy where it's going, Eakin has yet another side story following this plot called The Reign of Queen Twilight Sparkle. It's about 35,000 words, so it's not long, but it has a very, very hard mature rating, so don't have your parents see you reading it, kiddies. Hey, ANY, aren't we forgetting one other side story to the trilogy?
Huh?
You know, the side story that got Eakin's blessing.
What? Oh no.
Oh yeah, you know. The one with the awesome title. What was it called?
Don't you dare disturb my nice and positive review by bringing this one up.
Oh yeah! Horizon's Hard Reset 2, Reset Harder! Oh, that's your favorite story, isn't it, Aiden?
Ugh, this fiction.
Oh, what's wrong, my dear?
Okay, guess I should start from the beginning. Remember how Key and I praised Hard Reset for keeping the time loop shenanigans simple and easy to follow even for a non-Whovian? Well, the premise of Reset Harder is that the events of the original story get a bit more complex by adding more time travelers who are stuck in their own loops. While this might already scare some of the more casual readers away, for me, this was a very intriguing idea. And to be fair, this story starts out promising enough, with concepts how the multiple loops work and how the loopers can interact with each other. However, first of all, and this is true from the get-go, Reset Harder falls into the aforementioned trap of producing plot holes through complicated timey-wimey stuff. The longer I read the story, the harder it became for me to ignore that the entire idea of the intertwined loops doesn't make sense.
Say that line outside of a sci-fi convention and you would get some pretty funny looks, hun.
Yeah, well, true. However, in this case, it is not a matter of suspension of disbelief, but rather that the idea doesn't work even by the logic within the story. For it to work the way the author set it up to be, all the loopers need to share the same spell, but everything points to it that all three are looping completely separate from each other. Well, and this is before the plot dissolves into ongoing discussions about trust, and longer loops carrying us further and further away from what made this story interesting in the first place. Time loop shenanigans in the spirit of Hard Reset. But hey, it kept me going all the way through to the point where the author stopped updating. What is still more than double of what I managed to read of Griffin the Griffin before I rage quit.
Feel better now?
Yeah, well, needed to answer for a bit. Has been bugging me for about 2 years.
Funny. That's how long you've been bugging me.
Weird. I remember it's the other way around. I mean, who approached whom offering them their services?
Who's the one who keeps asking me to draw them stuff at 2 in the morning?
And who adapted their sleeping cycle to be compatible with European time?
Oh, well, I didn't hear someone complaining about that before, Mr. Antisocial to everyone but me.
You're just fun to tease.
Yeah, 'cause no one else wants to tease you.
Jeez, they've been at each other's throats this entire video. We should just suck it up and hook up already.
What? No! Think about little Goldilocks! The poor cinnamon roll! It would break his heart!
Get a room, you two.
We did? Guys, okay, not that I didn't enjoy your melodious symphony last night, but, can I go now? I have shit to do.
But what about round 2?
Come here, you! Now open for business! Yay!
I was got your shirt term or
the bad nippers! This was close.
Is this still recording?
Yes.
Oh,
That's a great blooper.
you're gonna have a great blooper reel.
Yeah, we can use that take as just an outtake or something.